I have this habit of, as I'm glancing at the screen, my jaw drops. So
Duly noted. We'll be.
huh?
Yeah.
David can't join us today. He's traveling.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. I don't remember if Bart responded, but I'm assuming he's coming. Oops.
And Carmen?
You know, I haven't heard from Carmen, but you know what I can do? I can look at my meeting invitation to see who responded. I don't see that. Let's see. Nope, that's not it.
Hello.
I don't think Bart responded.
I'm here.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah. Sure looks like Bart.
Oh, I don't have the I don't have the screen on yet. Okay, there you are. Aha. Okay. Joanna should be joining us too. Oh, there's Carmen. Joanna. Carmen. Paul. Laura. Bart. Let's see, absent. David. Well, it's been a while since we met.
It has. Hi, Matthew and everybody.
Hello. Happy new fiscal year. I think Joanna is joining us because I just talked to her. So we'll see. We'll wait a little. She's here. But as we're waiting, did you have a chance to look at the meeting minutes from January? How did anybody remembers what happened back in January?
Oh yeah, I read them.
Okay.
They look good.
Okay. Well, we'll just assume that they're approved. Tell you what, I'll walk out there just to see if she's having problems. I'll be right back.
You see what happens? We have these virtual meetings and we still have to go make sure that the right person's sitting at the right spot, right?
Yeah. Are you guys in the office every day?
Far more often than not. I mean, at the beginning, it was probably tipped the other way, but now we're to the point where we're here, you know, on any given day, I would say 80% of the staff are here because, you know, most people are working from home 1 to 2 days a week now. Whereas at the beginning, we kind of had these week-long rotations so that people would be out and then they'd be back. And so we feel a little more comfortable doing what we're doing now because City Hall is still closed to kind of the walk-in public, right? I think if we open the doors at some point, that our strategy may change, but right now it's a pretty it's a fairly controlled environment, and most people are wearing masks at least when they get up and wander away from their office. And there's very, in a building this size, there's still relatively few people in here. So, like the folks in PD largely contain themselves to the PD area, and the same is true for finance. Our floor maybe has the most cross traffic with any, the upper floors have public works, community development, and then the manager's office and the clerk's office on the other side. So there's a little bit of cross traffic between those two areas, but overall not much really. So we're pretty I don't want to say super comfortable, because I think that's relative. I think some people are more comfortable now. There are some people that still have concerns, so we're trying to kind of balance everything out.
Right. Got it.
We're back. Okay. It's funny. Where's
Oh, did we lose Laura?
no? Where's Joanna?
Oh.
I wonder if she's a visitor. She registered as using the link on the top of the agenda.
Oh, she didn't use the email from the clerk.
Oh,
Maybe it wasn't sent to her.
there it is. There she is.
Promoted her.
She's coming on.
Okay.
And then she can, what do you call it? Activate the camera and all. So we could get started. We've just approved the minutes from January. As our usual practice, we go over the ongoing projects. Quite a few months have elapsed. And I have reports from Fred regarding projects on their agenda. First one is the Santa Mostaquino Creek Trail feasibility study. And the update is the project webpage has been updated. There was a 1-month public comment period for the environmental document that ended on June 30th. And the project team is currently sorting through the comments. And the team is anticipating going to the city council in October. That sounds right. Okay.
Was there anything of any substantial that jumped out off the page on comments on the EIR? Anything that there's been any talk about?
Tell you the truth, what I have in my hands is all I have.
All right.
Yeah, I will say there's some pretty some concerning comments there that as you know from our line of work, Carmen, we always get a few concerned citizens along the way, but in this case we got rather alarming comments from 2 school districts as well as the water district. And it was surprising to get the water district because we've been engaging them all along, and so I'm not as concerned about their comment. I mean, their comments are more along the lines that if we were to go into construction right now, we would cause, well, that's not our proposal. We're proposing to finish the environmental document. The comments from the school district were also concerning because they actually submitted their comments through their attorney, and their concerns about the safety of their campus and sound attenuation. And in the case of the elementary district, they're really kind of pushing, maybe pushing is not the right word, but they are suggesting that the city take a more active role in resolving the issue around the ownership and maintenance of the existing ped bridge out there, which is not ours. But it's like, well, and they know it's not ours, so it's just, we're going to have to reconcile all those comments. We'd like to meet with all 3 groups before we go to council, so we can really get just a better sense of what they're getting at. But the fact that they did respond, we're going to have to address it, and those comments will go to council.
Well, and it's better to do, to do a little bit, do some work with them before it goes to council, so
Right.
that show up as a real surprise to the staff when they show up
Right.
and what they're going to say. So that's good. We'll have hopefully responses and
Yes.
we'll work with them. Well, thank you. Yeah.
It's kind of ironic that the water district would comment on a project for which at one time they provided grant funds.
Yeah, that was a little surprising. You know, I guess just irritating, you know, was
Yeah.
A little
Uh,
ironic.
Question, did it come from somebody that had been involved with it or somebody that has been uninvolved with the whole process at the district?
that I couldn't tell you that off the top of my head, but yeah, I think, you know, they are a large organization, and so it wouldn't be surprising if one
Yes.
group didn't know what the other group was doing. So I will double back on that. That's a good comment.
I thought by and large, the water district was fully supportive of creating trails along their creeks.
That's
And
what
they've
they
been
tell
doing
you.
it.
That's what their
Yeah.
website says.
I mean, when we walked it with them, it sounded like they were gung ho.
Yeah, and I think they are. That's why I wonder, you know, where these comments came from, and if the comments are more along the lines of their boilerplate, you know, ordinary concerns that, you know, we need to ensure that we maintain our maintenance access and don't do this during the migratory bird season. And I mean, I don't know if it was along those lines or if it was truly a concern about building a creek trail on this segment. I don't recall that one. I was updated a little more in a little more detailed sense about what came from the two school districts.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
We will see.
Okay, the next project on the agenda is the Harriet Avenue traffic calming project. Project is completed. Speed hump advanced pavement markings were installed, and they appear to be effective. We actually downloaded some speed data this morning from the radar signs that are located just north and south of McCoy Avenue. And we found that when we compare it to some radar surveys that we took using a radar gun back in 2015, it shows a marked decrease in speeds on Harriet Avenue on the order of 11 miles per hour,
Oh, yeah.
average speed. So that's quite
Good.
significant. Right, so FYI.
Speed humps do work.
Yeah, that's going to be one of my questions because it was a little contentious to add speed bumps because Campbell didn't really want to do it. Maybe the city council, I don't remember, but I remember talking about it. They didn't really want to add those. Is there any complaints, and is Campbell going to look to use speed bumps more in the future?
Well, we have a traffic calming program now, meaning it's something that people, if they do submit a petition and get enough consensus among their neighbors, it will be available.
Isn't the procedure in the municipal code? Did it?
I'm not sure if there was like an ordinance or anything like that that changed the municipal code, if I ever heard your question correctly.
Yeah.
But if anything, it was more the council accepted the program as presented. Is that right, Todd?
Yeah. So at the time we started the Harriet project, you know, we didn't have a traffic calming policy. So that was kind of the impetus to us, you know, formulating a policy that got approved and some funding about the same time the Harriet project was moving forward. So Harriet wasn't your typical neighborhood traffic calming project all by itself because it also had this hawk component and some other improvements out there as well. But we do have a traffic calming program now, as Matthew said, and we do have a couple of neighborhoods who have qualified and have gone through the process, and probably by the end of summer you'll see an additional street that has some speed humps installed, and then we'll move on to the next. So traffic calming is largely neighborhood driven and neighborhood approved, and it can get a little trickier on local collector streets because it doesn't affect just the residents sometimes. So it's easier and it's cleaner from a staff perspective if we're dealing with truly local streets. But in the case of a collector street, you almost kind of need to have a wider community process, which can be more challenging. But that was really how we ended up, starting this whole traffic calming effort.
But I think is the policy, I've read it somewhere, is the policy on the website?
Yes.
I believe it is.
I think maybe that's where I saw it rather than in the Unicode. Okay.
Right. It's a little bit circuitous how to get there. You go to the Public Works page, which in turn has a link for traffic engineering. And then there should be a link under the traffic engineering web page for neighborhood traffic calming program. Getting back to Paul had a question, were there any complaints? Not that I know of. What's kind of challenging is folks who have a long-standing opinion about a street may feel, oh, the speed humps haven't helped a bit or something like that, but they haven't seen the data. And so it's only their gut reaction for maybe a split moment on a certain day or a certain morning. And it may be the impression is not necessarily based on speed. It might be just that it's hard to back out of driving because of the volume of traffic. But we do have the data, and it does show.
That's good. Yeah.
Is there any more questions? Otherwise, I can move on
Nope.
to the project.
Yep, that's
Thank you.
good. Thank you.
Yeah, the next one is the Winchester Boulevard Overlay Project. I don't know if you folks have had a chance to travel in that area.
Oh yeah.
Not by bike.
Yeah. Is it mill and fill, or what are they? Are they just doing an edge grind? It almost looked like they were grinding all the way across the lanes.
I have heard the verb milling. So yes, I think they are grinding right across the.
Yeah. No, it'd be nice when it's done.
Yeah, and it's going to be different because of all the input that you provided for the green bike lanes and all. The complexion of the street, especially south of Bud and north of Campbell Avenue, will be quite different. But here's the official report from Fred. Construction is in progress. Yeah. Prep work is complete and paving operations have begun. Paving will last until early August. And some operations will take place at night.
Oh yeah.
And construction is anticipated to end by late September with striping, including the new bike lanes and sharrows. That's at the tail end of the construction.
Okay.
So this is exciting.
It is.
Yeah.
I think we should have some signs put up saying, "Pardon our dust."
Well, the good news is that there's so little traffic on it now.
True.
I mean, it's kind of a great time.
Right. Interesting. I heard some feedback that some of the dust is based on what was constructed below the surface about 20 years ago. Interesting. We had used pavement fabric back then. Yeah. So anyway, that's that project.
With the grinding.
Yeah. It does look dusty out there. Let's see. I'll hold off on that report. The next item has to do with San Jose Better Bike Plan 2025. Now, I'm going to attempt to share my screen, but Here, let me do that. Oh, what a mess. Let me do this before I do that. I don't know, did you have a chance to take a look at the link for the San Jose bike plan by any chance?
Sounds good. Have a good weekend. You too.
Now I'm going to try to search for the window. Can you see my screen with a map with a bunch of
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
This is the San Jose Better Bike Plan 2025 webpage. And if you haven't had a chance to look at it, right around here is where Campbell is. So you can use your mouse wheel to zoom in, and you can click over on the left for view instructions. No, that's not it. Let's see what happens when we click let's go. Okay, that's not really helpful. Anyway, if you go to a particular street like Hamilton Avenue, you click on it. Hello. Then off to the left shows a street view of that street, and in the upper left, the extents of the segment of roadway, what's being proposed, and for further evaluation. There may be more details for each specific roadway segment. Let's say parking removal, in this case, another segment might have something different. The one caveat is this map was kind of released a little bit out of order. We are going to meet with San Jose staff to go over our comments. So some of the information shared in this map are unofficial, especially the portions within Campbell city limits. So the information hasn't been vetted. But if you're interested in looking at information related to San Jose streets, you're free to move around and click on whatever street and see what pops up.
Yeah, I think I know I looked at it and I think that's what I thought, going, oh yeah, it doesn't really look like they've got Campbell quite the way we're gonna have it. Or
Yeah, I'm glad you get that impression, because I was concerned about that.
but then again, then I thought, well, but it is San Jose, but you know, we're so close to them, it would be nice if they incorporated, you know, what we're doing, especially like what we're doing on Winchester Boulevard, because that's a big project, and that's a really nice link. I know they don't go down to Los Gatos, so, or not really.
Right. So anyway, I guess for now there isn't much to share in regards to Campbell. Just that, take it with a grain of salt. What's being proposed has not been vetted. We have our comments, and we'll talk to San Jose about it next week. Any questions? I don't know, Todd, if you have anything to add. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was trying to unmute and I was not doing it right. My apologies.
Give me the thumbs up.
Now that I've been unmuted, watch out. No, I would just suggest that if any of you any of you take a look at this map and have any comments or insights regarding any of the segments that they've listed in Campbell, you might want to see if you can pass those along to us before we meet. I think we're going to meet with them next Wednesday. So, what their approach seems to be is that for each segment that's listed, that they provide a description of what the current bike facilities are, and then what their suggestions are for future improvements. And our concern isn't necessarily that they're showing what's the existing conditions, because I agree with what Carmen said, in that, sometimes to get from one part of San Jose to another part of San Jose, you will necessarily have to traverse through Campbell. And so we don't necessarily mind that. What I think our concern is that they may be creating expectations on certain segments for improvements that may or may not be feasible. And so that's what we really want to flesh out, is that, is that we really only articulate and show, if that's even the right thing to do, improvements that might actually work in the width of the roadway. So
Right.
that's really what the gist of our conversation is going to be after we accept their apologies for showing our segments before discussing that with us. I say that half kidding, but that's really what we want to get to is let's talk about what you're showing, why you're showing it, and and then what's the appropriateness of showing something maybe on a San Jose website before Campbell has even had the opportunity to evaluate these and put them on our own website if we deem these appropriate. Because I mean, to some extent, it was a bit of a surprise to find out about this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, because we don't have a citywide bicycle plan, so I mean, we have a couple little areas and.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
At best, we refer to the general plan, and that's not very specific.
Yeah, this doesn't seem to be consistent with the county overall bike plan either.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I would, before you talk to him, I would take a look at that as well and what it has for Campbell.
Yeah, good. It's a good idea.
Right.
It is sort of, I mean, even though they got Campbell, Los Gatos actually does have a master plan, and it would have been nice if they would have included Los Gatos, because that is actually easier for them to do. I don't know how much they have a little bit, I guess, but I don't know that they have all of the Los Gatos plan in there.
Yeah, I'm looking at the portion that links up with Campbell. Remember we were talking about Del
Mhm.
Avenue and Knowles, and I don't see anything here. So it could be because like San Jose is further south.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the better bike plan. Item number 5 is the BTA BPAC update. Paul, I don't know, have they been holding any meetings? No, they haven't.
We have not, since the last email I sent out with information, there's been no meeting since then.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Let me change some of the order of the agenda. I'm looking at number 7. July 23rd, the mayor a few months ago held a roundtable meeting. Now, Carmen, did you attend that?
I did.
Okay. There's been an invitation to yet another roundtable meeting for next Thursday, July 23rd. Is anybody? Carmen, are you the chair right now?
I believe so.
Okay. Would you be really on top of things here? Would you?
Last time I checked, I think I was.
If I forward you the invitation. Can you
Yeah.
take a look at it and?
Oh, yeah,
if
I
you
could probably zoom in.
Okay, RSVP. Okay.
Yeah, I'll zoom in, sure.
Okay, send to comment.
I don't know that it was really that critical for us, but at the last one, but it's okay.
And I'm just going from memory.
What everybody else is doing.
It was more, it sounded like there was a desire to have some cross communication among the commissions and boards. Is that correct? Or?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of more important for some of the other boards rather than ours. You know, but yeah,
When
yeah,
I
I
stopped sharing this thing.
really that helpful. Yeah, I know I went and I took notes and.
Okay, I remember too, wasn't there something that was of interest on Mayor's part? She was interested in something having to do with bicycles.
She wanted a map.
Oh,
She
a
wanted,
bike map. Okay.
and I think she was kind of pressuring me to say, oh yeah, we'll get right on that. But you know, gotta, that's a staff thing.
Okay.
I'm not, yeah, you know.
Okay, no problem. By the way, I will, when we get to the around the table discussion, we'll add some stuff that isn't in the agenda, but I think it would be of interest to folks. One is CIP projects for the new fiscal year, and the other is there's a Measure B education and encouragement program. So it's not really capital projects, but it's more the non-capital, let's say. So I'll talk about that a little bit. So going down the line, the next item would be BPAC membership. Let's see. Normally we would have, without a pandemic, normally we would have recruitment of we would have applications for our boards and commissions in June, interviews in July, appointments in August. We're already in July. We're still in process. So it's our schedules has slid a little. We had three positions whose terms were expiring this year. So we haven't figured out what we're doing yet. I need to talk to Todd about logistics, but just to let you know, there has been a process, and we're still figuring it out. In the meantime, there is, I guess, one position that it definitely won't be filled by incumbent. You just mentioned, Paul Tuttle has moved and out of Campbell. So because of that, you can still serve out your term, though. You're still.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, until the end of August, at least.
You would say yes, please.
You still want to go to those VTA BPAC meetings? But anyway, I did want to acknowledge Paul's service on the BPAC because he's been a tremendous help in many ways. Attending those BPAC meetings, which can run a little late, and they're not held in Campbell. They're up at BTA's headquarters. His participation in the various events that we have in the downtown. You'll see him on the webpage featured with riding his bicycle as part of I think it was the Bunnies and Bonnets Parade, carrying the banner, but also being available for signing letters of support for some of the grant applications we've had. yeah, so really appreciate your help, Paul, over the years.
It was a pleasure. Absolute
Yeah.
pleasure.
We're gonna miss you.
Oh, thanks. I'll
If
miss
I
it.
can afford that, if back on the committee, that is.
And by the way, you missed the commissioners' dinner last November.
I did.
I
Yes.
took this with me, but it's been sitting in my office all this time. This is your this is your going away gift. It's actually, we owed it to you from last November. It's a really nice gift. It's just
Oh, good.
you want
Thank
me to, I won't open it now, but
You can email it.
I don't know how we're gonna get it to you. If you want to set an appointment to swing by City
Sure.
Hall.
I can do that.
Yeah, but it's a nice little gift.
Well, we could almost bring it to you because I think you're out of Campbell by about 8 houses.
Yeah, it's something like that. I live on Rincon now.
Yes.
Literally, we're not kidding. I live in Campbell, 95008, and I'm served by San Jose.
Okay.
Yeah,
We're gonna have-
you'd have to check the GIS map to really get the understanding of that, but it's close.
Yeah.
And if I could just add, I've really appreciated working with Paulo over the years, and as Matthew said, he's supported the city and represented us at VTA and at special events. But I also want to recognize that when we as staff were out taking the slings and arrows on proposing building new creek trails like San Tomas Aquino, Paul was out there with us, as a community member, essentially trying to help educate people that creek trails are really not a bad thing, and you shouldn't be afraid of them because they provide all of this tremendous benefit. And we had several open houses out at Forest Hill Elementary, and appreciated your help and support there. And in fact, when the item went to council a couple of times, and the people against the creek trail outnumbered those in favor of the creek trail as public speakers, probably at least 5-1. Well, Paul was happily in that one group and represented himself, and also pointed out that the project had been discussed by the BPAC and advocated for the Creek Trail project. And we'll see how that goes eventually, but I've always appreciated that. So thank you for everything, Paul. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
I checked the bottom of the Zoom. Usually, sometimes there's a participation button where you can show a clapping hand, but it's not there. Right, golf clap, golf clap.
Yeah. Who wants to join VTA?
That's, you know what, that's another thing. Eventually, yes, we do need a volunteer to attend the VTA BPAC meetings if they ever resume. Who knows? Maybe.
We did do, May was a Zoom, resumed via Zoom. It was a challenge, and it was 3.5 hours. It was very slow on Zoom. They don't have it figured out yet. June and July have been canceled. I don't know about August yet. But it's going to be done via Zoom for the foreseeable future. So.
Well, we'll have to figure that out. Okay. Now we're down to item number 8, and I'll open up with the CIP project. The projects that I thought we would talk about, there are 3 that have to do with pedestrians or bicycles. One is this Campbell Park Bikeway project, which I think the BPAC has heard about because it was included as part of the TDA grant application. But I'll invite Todd to discuss it, but I'll rattle off the other projects so you have a heads up. The second one is the Harriet Avenue Sidewalk Project, and the third is the Community Center Track.
Okay, so let me give you just a little sense on these if you don't know exactly what we're moving ahead with here. The Campbell Park Pathway Project actually started out as part of the Campbell Park playground renovation project, believe it or not. And as we started assessing the need to rehabilitate the play area out there, you know, you kind of take a step back from everything and see what are the other issues that we're having in this park, you know, in terms of ingress, egress, site circulation, and whatnot. And so part of what we had to address, or what we thought we had to address, was this notion that there's this main pathway that kind of travels from the intersection of Campbell Avenue up at the stoplight up near the top of the park, and then comes down and eventually connects to the Ped Bridge. Well, as it does that, it goes right adjacent to the play lot, and separates on either side of the pathway is the play lot, and then the picnic tables and benches where all of the parents sit, and sometimes the kids eat their lunch there. And what you end up getting is this big conflict of small children and other pedestrians, joggers, and sometimes bicyclists. And so we, you know, put that thought on hold for a second. And then as we also pursued this notion of rehabilitating and renovating the play lot, also looking at the fact that the space is relatively constrained. And so there might be a way for us to maybe expand that. So one of the notions that we came up with, and I don't know how well you can see the rendering that Matthew has up there now, but there's kind of, that's a rendering of what we're going to do with the play lot. And there's the kind of that dark gray diagonal looking bar there. That would actually be a replacement pathway that would be kind of on the outside of the current pathway, on the other side of the trees and the picnic tables, to separate the bike and ped use and the whole, basically the creek trail connection from being so interrelated to the activity on the play lot. And so this is a project that we're actually recommending that moves forward as a separate project and moves forward ahead of the play lot renovation, such that we can kind of create this bypass for the ease of bikes and peds and hikers and joggers to get them from Campbell and Gilman down to the creek trail and the Ped Bridge. And then once we create that, we can then move forward with the park renovation, the play lot renovation project separately, and expand into what is the current pathway out there, and make that more of a conventional pedestrian path that people will use to access the play lot. And so, as Matthew says, this was brought before you, I think, before just to give you an awareness and get your approval that we could potentially use our TDA allotment for this project as well. And so we did propose this in the CIP that we took to council. It was funded, and we'll be moving forward with that as a current fiscal year project. So as Matthew said, happy fiscal year. Our fiscal year runs July through June. So our goal would be that we'll complete that project over the next 12 months. And then the play lot construction, even though the play lot's under design now, the construction would not happen until the following fiscal year. So that's a project that we plan to move forward on, and we think it's a more holistic improvement to the park. It not only helps with the circulation, provides better bicycle and pedestrian access from the street down to the creek trail, but also kind of separates the conflicts and should enhance the whole playground renovation project. So we're happy to be moving forward with that one. And then I can also talk about the Harriet Avenue sidewalk project that Matthew mentioned. Is not the same as the Harriet Avenue traffic calming project that we just completed. So we're not working on the same stretch of roadway per se. This is actually the segment that is south of Westmont, and it's a heavily used heavily used by the high school students to kind of walk and bike from the neighborhood to get to Westmont. So it's essentially, I think, from Van Dusen up to Westmont, and you do have a pretty large segment of that street that you have several segments of that street that don't have sidewalk on either side. And so we're trying to enhance not only what we have, but certainly on the segments that don't have sidewalk on either side, we're going to be installing a sidewalk at least on one side. And, you know, it sounds relatively simple, but there are curbs that have to be moved and reconstructed. There are utility poles that have to be relocated. So a lot of that utility work will need to be done in advance. This is a project that we applied for grant funding. I want to say probably between a year and a half, probably about a year and a half ago, and we actually got, I believe, $1 million in grant funding, and we're putting about $350,000 of city funding toward this project. So it's a pretty good leveraging of funding. It's a fairly long stretch of Harriet, what we sometimes call Old Harriet, which is because it doesn't align to the section of Harriet that we just did the work. It's offset by actually quite a few blocks, runs south of that, and so that's a project that we have. Let's see, we will be under design and construct. We're doing some preliminary work on that now, but our main construction will actually be in fiscal year 22, which means you probably won't see any physical progress out there the current year. This will really be a year of design and hoping to get some of the utilities to start doing some of their relocation work. Our main construction will actually happen next fiscal year, so that'll be after next July. So that will be when you'll see the predominant amount of construction out there. And then lastly, you're all familiar.
Do you have a lot? Can I ask a quick question?
Please,
do you
yes.
have any right-of-way problems out there? I take it fronts all houses, right?
It does. I'm not recalling any. I think for those of you who have been around a little longer and recall our Virginia Avenue sidewalk project where we did something similar, we did have a couple of households there, a couple of residential lots where we did not have sufficient right of way, and we kind of had to push the sidewalk out toward the street and kind of, wow it back. I am not aware that we have any of those out here yet, but I will certainly double check. I just haven't, just because I haven't heard of them yet doesn't mean they don't exist, but that's the kind of challenges that you typically find on sideway projects, right?
Yes.
That you have a very narrow street right of way, and if you want to widen the sidewalk, you can either work with the adjacent property owner on obtaining an easement, or you've got to basically narrow the roadway to get the pedestrian improvements out. So hopefully it doesn't come to that, because I think that stretch of road is somewhat narrow already.
Right.
So that's the goal out there.
Okay, well, we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Let me add, what you see, hopefully you're seeing on the screen what I put up there. The top panel is going from the northern end of the project at Westmont Avenue. And
I see blank.
I blank, yeah.
you don't see it, Laura?
I see all gray.
I could see your list of files.
Yeah.
But I can't see the open I can see that you probably have clicked on the Harriet PDF, but I don't see it.
Oh, maybe I should press resume share.
Well, there you go. Oh,
There you go.
there we are.
Sure.
Except now it's can you move it to the left? It's obscured by all of our beautiful faces, essentially.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me,
And where did this grant come from?
I think that was.
it's a verbs grant. It's,
Yep.
It's a
Thank you.
subset of the One Bay Area grant for Safe as a School.
Oh, okay, good.
Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with how to navigate while
Yeah.
sharing a screen, but.
Well, that's a lot better. I will say that gives us a better sense.
Okay, well, what I was trying to describe is this panel over here um, is the northern end of the project at Westmont Avenue. So the high school is like over in this direction. We're working on the west side of Harriet Avenue. To answer the question about whether there's any right-of-way issue, I believe it's okay. It was the east side that was more of an issue with right-of-way, especially in this area. So that's
Yeah, that's
we
a little
put
close.
our
Right.
attention and the scope of the project on the west side of Harriet Avenue.
Mm.
If I kind of just scroll down a little, in yellow are the portions that where we will be installing the sidewalk. Uh, the areas that are darker color, they already have sidewalk,
Mm.
so there's no need to install anything new. Once you get to Hacienda Avenue, it links up with this panel, and we
Mm.
continue further south until we reach to the southern end of the project at Van Dusen Lane.
Mhm.
Right, so that's kind of just shows the extent of the project.
Very good.
Okay. The third one is the community center track.
Yes, and so everybody is familiar with our track, and for several years we've known that the track needs some level of resurfacing before it falls completely out of good condition, and the risk there is that the longer you defer that, then it no longer becomes a kind of a top coat issue. It becomes more of a structural issue. So we've been aware of this for several years, that the track needs some resurfacing. It's been on our unfunded capital list for a few years, and we were able to. We actually included it in the CIP this year, and it was approved for funding. The interesting little nuance that we're now working on just over the last couple of weeks here is that we included it in year 3 funding, which would have meant fiscal year 2023. So that would have been at least 3 years out. We did apply for a CDBG grant through the county for the entire amount. We did not get the entire amount, which is probably going to be close to $300,000. But we kind of came in second place in the sweepstakes, if you will, and they awarded us over $60,000. But the requirement would be that we've got to do the project in the current fiscal year. So we're going to take a proposal to the council within the next couple of months that would propose moving it from year 3, where it would essentially be a $300,000 project, to year 1, where it would become a $240,000 project of city money, then augmented with $60,000 of countywide money. So I think that is going to be, as they used to call it in the movies once upon a time, an offer that they can't refuse. And hopefully that'll get approved, and then we can add this to our list of projects for the current fiscal year. So stay tuned on that. I think we're targeting going to council August, I want to say August 18th on that. So that's our plan at this point.
Good.
Todd, how long is that project going to take?
You know, that's one of those projects that in construction actually will not take very long. It will probably take us longer because the track is so heavily used.
Right.
It'll take us longer to do the appropriate amount of public noticing and preparation and put fencing up, so that when we activate the project, I think the whole project will probably have less than a month of construction time. And it actually may be considerably, my sense is that it's probably a couple of weeks to do the treatment, because it's a fairly, you know, it's a fairly high amount of square footage, because I mean it's a quarter-mile track, but then you multiply that by the width essentially going all the way around, and then it needs a certain amount of curing time, which I think will be about a week. So I want to say that it's like I think we'll be shut down for only about 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay,
The balancing act that we have to walk on that is that you need a certain temperature for the material to cure. So it's not like we can go do this project in the middle of winter when it's theoretically lower usage. We're going to have to do this at a time when it's warmer temperatures, when there might be higher demand. I suspect that we won't make it this summer before the fall, but I would think that we'll be hitting construction maybe next, like, April-ish or so, because we'll have to finish this by June.
okay, good. Because now that the gyms are open, there's no cardio.
That's right. Everybody loves our track. And we just, for those of you who may not have been following along, but our track was open when we went into pandemic mode. We left the track open for a while, and then we just we saw that people were not practicing appropriate social distancing, not only on the track, but at other park amenities too. We had to close it down. We kept it closed for a while. And now, as some of the guidelines have been kind of relaxed, we've reopened the track. It's been about a month or so, and the behavior is much better. But yeah, people with everything else being closed, yeah, people really want their cardio. So we're doing what we can to keep it open.
Sounds good. Great.
So this is Barton. So if you move that forward, does some other part of that 3-year plan have to get moved to a later year?
No, it actually doesn't. Well, I mean, it certainly sounds like as though it would, and it's a little complex, because the portion that would be funded by the city is going to come out of park money. And so our park development fund is actually in relatively good shape compared to some of our other funds. So financially, it's easier to move it forward, because you're not going to displace any other projects. The difficulty, the challenging part is going to be that we've got to find some staff time to get the project done. Unlike some of the other projects that we spoke about earlier, this project will not require a significant amount of design. So this is essentially something that could almost be done on a purchase order basis. It's almost like a spec type design. Even though the dollar magnitude is high, it's almost like doing a roof or I don't know, I can't think of another better example. It's just like a big resilient surfacing project. So we're actually going to have our maintenance division lead the effort here. And yes, there may be some things that have to be temporarily pushed aside to make this happen, but no major projects will have to be deferred to accommodate this.
Okay, thanks, Todd. The other item I wanted to add to the agenda for around the table was the Measure B education and encouragement program. We have, I'll just say it's over $100,000 accumulated of Measure B funds that have been allocated to the City of Campbell. And the two concepts that we're considering, one is that citywide bike map concept. Not sure how much you want to share at the roundtable. Just we're considering submitting it. The application isn't due until October. The other is safe routes to school maps, walking and biking maps. We were thinking of two particular schools, Capri Elementary as well as Rosemary Elementary School. Each of them have had some attention given to it. There was a Safe Routes to School walking school bus event a few years ago, you might remember. where they walked on Hacienda Avenue across, I think it might have been Capri Drive, and then walked to the school. And then Rosemary School got some attention with the Eden Avenue sidewalk project and installation of the flashing beacon system there. Those two locations we're thinking of submitting as part of the use of those funds. So just an FYI. Any questions?
Yep.
Seeing none. Does anybody have any around the table comment?
I just have one comment.
Sure.
I started on the BPAC 10 years ago, and I think from the time that I started, I have been bringing up the Harriet Avenue project. Partially because I was sitting on, at the time, Safe Routes to Schools. My kids walked to school that way all the time. So it's thrilling as my parting gift, you've got the Harriet project done. So thank you.
Your kids are now out of college and
They are.
they are.
Yes. But there's plenty of kids moving into the neighborhood. So that will always be needed. So I'm thrilled.
Yeah, when we first proposed that as a project, because we had applied for VERBS funding a couple of cycles ago, it was just kind of striking that here are these high school kids are walking along a street that doesn't have sidewalk, side by side with these moving vehicles. So it's kind of, let's say, it just didn't feel comfortable to have.
Yeah. And it was bad in the rain because there's nowhere to walk but in the street. And there's all kinds of cars going to Westmont. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm thrilled. Thank you.
All right.
I wanted to add one thing, just, this is right by me. So Los Gatos has installed their bike lanes on Knowles because they did the paving on Knowles.
That's right.
So now the bike lanes go all the way to Dell.
Interesting.
I haven't ridden all the way to Dell, but I can see them down there. They got green bike lanes right at the intersection. I did notice, I think they put a green bike box also at Knowles and Winchester.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
You know what? I have one more around the table thing. You just jarred my memory. We do have a capital project to put in a bike box at Campbell and Railway. That was part of it was included in the Tipsy project. But anyway, that is something that is on our minds to begin designing. That, as well as the other component of the same capital project, would be to install these rapid flashing beacon systems. One would be at Civic Center Drive at 2nd Street, next to the garage, and the other would be at Orchard City Drive and 2nd Street, coming around the curve on Orchard City and towards the straightaway. Just seemed to have a need for alerting motorists that when a pedestrian is crossing.
Yeah, you can't see.
Yeah, so we were thinking of having not just the beacons at the crosswalk, but maybe one supplementary beacon slightly in advance up the curve, so that people coming around the curve will see that blinking first, and then they'll see the two flashing beacons at the crosswalk. So
Yeah.
Bike box. So just curious, does anybody else have anything?
Just wanted to ask Matthew, are you going to send Carmen the email about the mayor's roundtable next week?
Yes.
I just pulled it up real quick, Carmen. So it is the 23rd, but I think it's at 7 p.m. So
Okay.
It's a little later than we normally meet, but just so you're thinking,
Yep.
okay, good. Nice to see everybody.
Nice to see you, everybody. I hope everybody's being healthy.
Yes.
Next meeting possibly September 17th, Thursday, 5 p.m. Probably on Zoom.
Very likely.
Probably, yeah.
Yes. All right.
Okay, well,
All right.
thanks
Thanks,
for,
everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
all right.
Care.
Bye.
Bye.